Yo, this is Dark, and here's a quick guide to Boralus, everyone's favorite dungeon. Alright, in the first area of the dungeon, you're going to have the water shapers that are going to cast watertight shell. You want to kick that. If you don't kick it, you can also purge it off of them, but if you don't purge it or do anything about it, it's going to explode after 10 seconds, and then it's going to stun an AoE. Black tar bombers will leave fire puddles on the ground. Make sure you're walking out of that. The Iron Tide Raiders will pull you in with Iron Hook, and then they'll follow it up with Savage Tempest. So you want to make sure you're getting out of that after he pulls you. And then for tanks, the Scrimshaw Enforcer is going to do a frontal cone pointing at you every time. So you want to make sure you're facing them away from the group. Otherwise, you're going to be hitting your team and no one's going to like you. Alright, first boss of the dungeon, Chopper Red Hook. He's going to always be fixating on a random player that's not the tank. The tank's going to want to pick up the Iron Tide Powder Shot and the Iron Tide Cleaver. Powder Shot, you can probably just pull him in if you're a Death Knight, keep him by the boss, keep cleaving him down. He's not that important. The Cleaver, he'll do a heavy slash that's going to always be pointed at the tank, and it will do a line, so make sure you're trying not point that at your teammates. Alright, so besides the ad management, keeping the ads close to the boss so you can just cleave everything down while the boss is fixated on someone. There's going to be bombs that spawn in the ground that you want to run the boss into to stun them and do extra damage. If you don't run the boss into the bombs could explode and do party-wide damage. You can soak them as the tank, or the tank can walk the cleavers into the bombs if they need to take them out that way. But if you don't do it on the boss, his fixate channel will finish. He's going to pull everyone into him, and then also do the AoE swipe attack that you want to get out of as soon as possible if that happens. But just make sure you're having them run to the bombs, and that's basically the fight right there. Okay, the trash on the way to the second boss, you're going to be dealing with the Ashvane Commanders, who will be casting Bolstering Shout, basically reducing all damage that they receive for 8 seconds and their allies. So make sure you're kicking that, don't let them get it off. They will also be doing a charge, doing an AoE around a random player. Just make sure you're not by that player when he charges towards them. For tanks, you're going to have the Iron Tide Curse Blades, and they're going to do Curse Slash on you, doing arcane damage and increasing damage you receive by 15% for 10 seconds. It is a curse, so you could decurse it. Just make sure you're weary of that when it's on you. This is where you also have the first firing line gauntlet, so you'll have to take cover and make your way towards the enemy. Once you get to them, they'll stop doing the firing line animation. You can kill them like normal. The Ashvane Spotters are going to be targeting a random player with sighted artillery. It's going to drop down a bunch of artillery AoE shells. Just make sure you're moving, try not to land them on your allies, and no longer can you damage enemies like you could back in BFA with them, so don't worry about that. And right before the second boss here, you're going to fight the Ashvane Cannoneer, and that's going to be an ad that's in the boss fight as well. They're basically just going to do a broadside frontal, so you want to tank them away from the group. It's humongous, you can't miss it, just don't be in the huge line. Second boss, Dread Captain Lockwood. Tanks, you want to make sure you're always in melee range with this one, because if you're not, she'll be casting gut shot at random players and killing your DPS and healer. Not fun. And be mindful that she'll sometimes jump away, so make sure you close that gap on her. Alright, tanks, make sure you're tanking her away from the group, because she's going to do Clear the Deck, which is going to be a frontal cone. You can step out of it as she's casting, so it doesn't hit you either. And make sure everyone is safe. She also has an AoE ability with Fiery Ricochet, where it's going to shoot at one player and it's going to bounce to different players and put a dot on everyone it hits. So healers, just make sure you're ready to use your coolies for that, get your AoEs out, and rip it. She'll also do Mass Bombardment. That's just like the spotters from earlier, but it's going to target everyone this time. So you're going to have AoE circles dropping down on you. Just make sure you're shuffling and moving out of the way from those. And her main thing in this fight, when she gets to 66% and 33% health, she'll jump onto her ship, spawning 3 ads that will come and fight you instead. One's going to be the Cannoneer from earlier, so you want to watch out for that huge line frontal attack. And then she'll be shooting Azurite bombardments at you, so make sure you're dodging those. But once you kill the Cannoneer, you shoot it at the ship and the girl, and she'll jump back down and begin the next phase. And then from then on, it's rinse and repeat, and that's it for her. Let's move on. After you beat the Dread Captain, immediately will be another firing line, the second one. So again, you want to hide behind cover, get your way up there, or speed through it to stop them from firing at you. On to the next area before the third boss. The Demolishes are going to do 2 AoEs. One's going to be Terrifying Roar, which is a fear around him, so make sure you're not standing in that so you don't get feared all over the place. And then he's got a Crushing Slam, that's an unavoidable AoE, so just make sure you're topping off for that. The Pillagers will also cast Stinky Vomit on a player. It's a dot, so try to take it out. You can kick it. It's not the highest priority. But the priority kick in this area is going to be on the Tempest. They're going to do Choking Waters, which is a silence and a damage dot. So make sure you're focusing on kicking that. Okay, the Buccaneers have Banana Rampage, which is an AoE swirly with their banana, so you don't want to be in that if you're in melee. Try stand away from it. At the same time, they'll be throwing bananas on the ground, which you haven't noticed already. There's a crap ton of bananas everywhere. If you stand on those, you're going to get stunned for 2 seconds, and they're going to beat your ass. Alright, so tanks, you got the cutthroats who are going to be a pain in the ass for you. They're going to put a dot on you that does a crap ton of nature damage for 15 seconds. Every 3 seconds it will proc, whatever. But the big thing is the healing receive is reduced by 25%. It's a disease, so healers, please help us dispel it if you got a disease dispel. They also have the Ashvane snipers over here. They're not too bad, but they have a ricochet ability that will hit a bunch of people. And if they're all targeting one person, it could do a lot of damage. So make sure you're pulling cooldowns, popping cooldowns if necessary, before they pop a cap in your ass. You know what I'm saying? In the third boss room, you got Ashvane invaders that will do stinging venom coating. That will be applying poison to their attacks. So tanks, another one for you. It's going to apply stacks of it, and it's going to do damage every 2 seconds. If you have a dispel, poison dispel, help us out. AMS if it gets too high for you DKs. Alright, the third boss, Hodor Dark Fathom. So he's got Break Water, which is going to spawn a big blue swirly under everyone who's not the tank. So make sure you're baiting it so it's not in your guys' way, and then keep DPSing. They'll also be leaving blue icy puddles that will get washed away by the waves that come up later. Tanks, there's another frontal for you here. He's gonna do a Crushing Tide, which is gonna be a blue straight line wherever you're tanking him. So again, don't face him towards the party unless you don't like people. And then for his ultimate mechanic here, at full energy, he's gonna do Tidal Surge, which is gonna be the wave mechanic. There'll be 2 waves spawning, one after each other. You're gonna use the statue in the middle to hide behind and not get hit by the waves. If you get hit by them, you get decimated, take a shit ton of damage, and you probably die. Alright, and that's the third boss. Now you just charge your asses to the last boss. Get out of here. The final boss, the Kraken, Viggoth. Here you're not actually going to fight the boss's big ol' head. You're going to fight his tentacles. Tanks, you always want to pick up Demolishing Terror and deal with that mofo. DPS, you always want to kill the Gripping Tentacle to free the guy who can fix the cannon. Then once you take out the Demolishing, then the guy will fix the cannon. Someone jumps in the cannon, shoots the big old dude in the head, and you move on to the next area, rinse and repeat. For the Demolishing Tentacle here, if you're a tank, if you're not in melee range of him, he's going to be blasting the whole team, so make sure you're always up on his stuff. He'll also be casting a slam, knocking everyone back. Death Knight, so you could death advance it. Then we don't even have to deal with that crap. Healers are going to have to deal with Putrid Waters, managing dispels on a couple people. It's going to be AoE around them. When it dispels, if anyone's in that AoE circle on the target, it's going to knock you back, so be careful where you're standing before you're dispelling. A couple things to note here. Don't go in the water or you'll die really fast. If you're in the water, get the hell out. And then going on to the third platform, tanks, make sure you're tanking the actual big Kraken head, because as you're walking towards it, he can be meleeing some of your DPS and healers and killing them off. And other than that, the boss will do a Call of the Deep, which is just going to be a bunch of blue swirlies everywhere. So while you're dealing with everything, dodge the swirlies. And that's basically it. You do the 3 cannons, you blast his ass, and you're gone, you're done. Cool. See you next time.